Tried to see how it would be possible to draw a landscape that was not a landscape, but a period of landscape, a day of landscape perhaps. So you can't have a building, you can't have a tree, because that would be too specific. It has to be some kind of image or language that could cover a whole day's travel or a whole week's travel perhaps. I'm starting with nothing, blank wall, and seeing, what could you add? How much more complicated could you get it? But it's always adding, whereas there's this tendency, because I suppose we're dominated by the camera, that we think of full-on HD resolution reality as being the starting point, whereas I suppose I tend to think of the blank canvas or the blank sheet of paper as the starting point. Europe by train was something that I did quite a lot of at that time, and it's not a natural landscape, it's farmed, and it's been farmed for a long time. And the layout of the land is unnatural in a sense, but it is what we think of as at least escaping from the city. It's quite a computer-based, it's quite a mathematically based landscape, but at the same time it reflects a certain desire for escape. And this seemed to me to relate a lot to the kind of landscapes and images that I'd been doing at the time. I'd been photographing a lot of motorway images. And there's another work in the show which is in fact a drawing of one of these motorways with a very thin strip of land, so thin that you can't really tell which country you're in. You need to judge it by which side of the road you're on, really. It's on the right, if you notice that. It's obviously relatively flat, but it's always got this sense of promise of the hills or maybe mountains in the distance, which Middle Europe always does. You've always got the Pyrenees or the Alps looming in the distance, but you're not there. You either paint all the walls with this endless landscape or a section of it, depending on the architecture of the space. And that was somewhat inspired by children's railway sets. If you buy children's railway sets, you can also buy mid-Europe landscapes on a scroll of paper that you could then pin up around your train set, so that when you got down and looked at the train set, there would be this disappearing landscape in the distance to give you more of the idea of an environment. So the idea really is to look at the installation, look at the room, look at the architecture, thinking, how am I going to fill this space in a sense? And it just suddenly occurred to me, wouldn't it be better, rather than being in the studio and painting the picture and then trying to get it in here, I'll just paint it here. And the obvious thing to do therefore was to use emulsion paints as you might paint on the wall. And take it to the edge of the wall, in that case, whatever the wall happened to be, and have enough of it that it will transform the room whilst letting the room still have its say, so that the room is telling you one thing with its doors and the floor and the exits and so on, and the painting is telling you something else. And what I would like would be that the two things are balanced, perhaps, or maybe fighting even. What tends to happen is I'll get interested in something, and that interest will come from something I've seen in the real world, or the process of success and failure within the works themselves. So one work will succeed in some areas and perhaps feel like it could have gone further in another. So the next work will try to answer that. And what I recognize looking back is that you tend to go in circles, and you find that, yeah, I've dealt with this before in another way. This time it was because I was looking at people's faces. That time it was because I was looking at landscapes. It doesn't particularly mean that I've got an overall theory that I want to bring all these things together to make an overall statement. It's more that I just work on what interests me.